Everyone, I'd like to call the Board of Education and Business Committee meeting to order for Tuesday, February 27th. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. First item is the adoption of the agenda, and I ask for your consideration of a timed agenda item. We have a representative of DPAC arriving, I believe, at 5 o'clock. We'd like to interrupt our session of that time to hear a presentation from DPAC. I think it's the Vice Chair from DPAC. Any objections to that addition? Okay. Is there any other changes or additions to the agenda? So moved by Trustee Dolman, seconded by Trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of the January 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Any items, no action list items today, no petitions and delegations until later. And the first one up, we have our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Ms. Mall. Welcome.
Right on.
You have a hard act to follow from last time. No
And
pressure, no pressure.
And what's here, what's out there. Okay, we get to work with children, so that's our celebration.
Ouch.
That sounded really bad, I didn't mean that. Where are we, the boardroom?
You might need Gina too. Oh.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for a code. Right on. Okay. Should I stand or should I sit? Okay, so I'm going to start by turning on this little. How's that?
Very good.
Too loud? Beautiful. Right on. This is a strategy. Beat that. Someone is speaking to us. Okay. Okay, I'll speak to this later. Okay, so that's this board report. Report to the board from Support Services has been on the agenda for a little bit. So we've been thinking about it since June, and what is it we need to prepare for? What is it that you would like to know? Tim, I feel it reverberating. Could you just turn it down? Don't want to get so crazy here. Is that too quiet? Good, Jason? Okay, so I've had a conversation with a few of you here about where I think I'm going to be going today is where are we going as support services in the district and what's been happening. So I figure about 12 minutes talking about bigger ideas on the philosophy that helps guide our work, and then the last 15 minutes highlighting maybe 4 or 5 key areas that encompass or embrace the innovative practices that we are moving towards. I'll be working with a short little PowerPoint. In addition to, you have 2 resources in front of you. So let me start out by expressing my gratitude for the people that I get to work with. And yes, the children, just like everyone else, but of course the adults. There's a huge healthy appetite here to do what's right for kids. And that is so refreshing to come in and have that foundational piece. But I need to say that the highlights that I'll be showing in here are on the backs and in the hearts of many, many people. This is not Debbie's presentation, this is our presentation in the community. Special thanks to Ms. Denise, who switched dates with me because I was supposed to go last, and maybe I should have to compete against this. It was during 1701 season, and the amount of time, right, so Denise switched, which was a beautiful thing because today is Denise's birthday. Happy birthday, Denise. We didn't want to have you present on your birthday, so sit back and relax. So I want to set the table, and I need to reflect on my notes here because I want to rush and get to the other stuff. But I want to explain the background to this, and I've been a little hound on the support services staff ever since June. My style is to do something inclusive, not, again, Debbie's report. So sharing our voices as community here. I wanted it to be a worthwhile process. The last thing I wanted to do was to give you, remember the days of achievement contracts? Or this could be an IEP and it gets done, we spend hours doing it, and it gets tossed somewhere. I did not want that to happen, so I wanted it to be a growing and a living document. And my style is to go big and to paint splatter, as Richard Matthews would say. Debbie would be out there, and Candace got a taste of it the other day as one of our meetings. I just needed to splatter some ideas up there as we were speaking, and then to help bring that back to what are the main points that I want to make sure you leave today, which we'll get to in a few minutes. So many conversations with staff, their input as to where are we in alignment with the educated citizen and the transformation process. Who are we at support services? Where do we enhance, not necessarily fit in, but how can we integrate and help move the learning for all children forward? And then the question that's right in the middle, this is Rod's picture here from, I don't know who was this year or last year, Rod, but the big question is, are we structured in the right way to support the needs that we see in front of us? So in the middle, we'd have all different projects, or it could be the various needs of our kids or our adults, and then we have these varying pieces. Superintendent, we have curriculum up top, which could embrace a lot of things like ed tech, early learning, yeah, ABED, and then support services, AKA in the past, special ed. So are we structured the right way? When I first came on here last year, we started branding ourselves with learning services. So just to clarify that term, in my mind right now, learning services encompasses all of those groups at the top. So if you read the Week at a Peak, it's not just about SPED, okay? It's about all of us and how are we working together, integrating, enhancing our processes. But today I will focus a little bit more on support services. This is a conversation we want to continue with all of learning services. We started great last year. We had 5 whole group staff meetings, learning together, finding out more about one another, making connections. OT and careers, really? How does that work? But it's neat. When you have these people all under one roof, are we best utilizing our smarts as best as we can? Whereas we know that the challenge is when our people that we want to communicate are far away, and what are the efforts we make to meet with them? We've got them all under one roof, and so how can we make better use of that? And the 4 or 5 highlights encompasses that. When I say that our voice here that we're presenting is based on a lot of people, a lot of hard work, and a lot of hearts, this diagram is on the left here about staying the course around diversity matters. And when we look way back in history, when we had segregation, and the hard work that we've gone to come today where diversity, hopefully more than just a buzzword, and that's our role right now, where diversity is expected. That is the platform, that's the entry, and we celebrate that. The diversity in our classroom, in our learning environments, but also the diversity within each and every one of us. So there's various forms there. Lots of great work, how do we stay the course? And of course, political times, and where we go 10 steps forward, 1 step back, or 10 steps back, how do we stay the course? And then this piece on the right here is the piece that we've had our staff really engage in reflecting on themselves. This is from Shelley Moore, the dots, and understanding how we've grown, or the transition, or the continuum from exclusion, where we had special ed kids in a separate house on a hill behind the trees kind of thing, to where now in our classroom, teaching to the diverse learning needs and the diversity within our classroom, but all the various stages and the growth and the celebrations. Because goodness if you went back to exclusion. But using this as a framework, so now as staff, and it could be all of us here, where are we on this continuum? What are our actions like? What are our processes like? And are we structured? Are we in alignment? Are we supporting? Are we leading this kind of necessary change to support the learners that we see in front of us today? conversations turned into this document here, which I want to highlight as a draft. I'll be referring to it as we go along and also spending some time highlighting certain sections. Also, what you have here, maybe if I could just direct you to this one pager. In conversing with our people, our staff, we needed to figure out who we were, what were our beliefs, and then how do we act. So on the left-hand side, as support services, basically our motherhood statements around inclusive education that I won't spend time conversing on because inclusive ed, I'm assuming I'm going to jump forward here, but the premise is if we believe all kids can learn, all kids learn in a variety of ways, all kids learn at their own pace, whatever. If we believe, then how do we act? So the vision, the pieces that fall into place. So it's about finding better ways to respond to diversity, being child-centered, strength-based, building a repertoire of inclusive practices, strong school teams. And really we should be working ourselves out of positions because we want all of this to occur where the kids are. And then focusing on a continuum of support services, which is one of the pieces I'm going to emphasize today. So this continuum, just with the diagram there, basically it's a framework of a tiered process of support. Everything we do, our decisions, our actions, our planning, is it tiered? Do we want to be known as the system that can provide supports and interventions along a continuum? Or are we known as a system where we can only get so far, and then when we get to a certain place, we wash our hands and say, that's the community's responsibility, or we're not equipped, or whatever our reasons. How can we make sure we have this flow? When you plan in-services, let's say if we had 40 in-services here in this district, and we start reviewing where the target is. Are we all here? Are we here, or all three? It just becomes a framework, which is part of the whole process that we asked our staff. When you look and reflect on yourself in your services to schools and with teachers and with parents and with support teachers and one another, are we providing supports along the tier? Okay? So that's taken a while, and we're all at different places. If you look on the back side of this one pager, this is a good exercise. It's like building your resume. What have we done, right? And what can we capture? And so I want to talk a little bit about history and then going forward as to some of our changes. We started talking about all the big things that we've accomplished or are still in a journey and try to group them to make better sense. We have a chunk of, we're trying to unify our processes. So it's systemic, we have common language, common processes, and that we are more responsive. When we know more, how will that impact what we can do differently or more of depending on the situation? I really wanted to highlight the first line under there around developing a culture of collaborative support. That is key, the relationships, understanding one another, failing forward together, and figuring things out, because there's no right way, and there's no one way immediately. We need to figure that way together. That's big. So when someone asks, what do you do, Debbie? My elevator speech has to be something around building relationships and culture and doing the work together. Networking, and then some of the processes are there. They're here as an invitation. If you want to learn more about what do you mean by that, let's have further conversation. But these are some of the district-wide processes. Look simple on paper, but a lot of conversations and hard work behind those actions. Okay, notes. Are you with me? You're nodding your head so politely. Okay, I want to do a little history. I'm going to climb up on these things. Think about, I'll go over here. Think about, this is a master's program, a research program that one of our presidents at BC Case at the time, about 10 years ago, presented to the province to help us understand where we've been and where we might be heading, and maybe what can we do to change the trajectory of things. So back in the day, this brown area is the classroom. And back in the day, 99% of our kids were considered typical because of segregation, where we were excluded, and right? So typical. Okay, and then that started as we went through integration and inclusion. Typical, normal, we were going, what is normal anymore? What occurred there, some wonderful things. We brought in more specialties and we gleaned more information about our kids. We started developing more programs. And so what was happening in my mind, this is a quilt, and our quilt needs to stop getting bigger, basically, because pretty soon, this was 10 years ago, and Laurie Neston, who was the one who did this research, 67% of the time were considered to be typical if we remove all the kids with labels. So pretty soon there's going to be no one left to teach if we keep doing this kind of process. What's the caution and the wonder, and what can we do here? All done in great faith because we wanted to know more about our kids, and then how can we support. So the question for us here is, how can we set up this to have this wonderful information to be integrated back in the privacy of the classroom? How can we ensure that we're talking and collaborating and co-laboring with the people who are in front of our kids for the most part of the day? And that is what we're trying to do right now, okay? Can't sustain this model. We can't have 400 speech paths or 400 school sites, but what you do know, how can we do here? So my comment is a session, 20 minutes a week with a speech path, all on your own, or how much more rich can we make it when the speech path talks with the classroom teacher and the learning assistant and the counselor and whoever, the family, to strengthen. So what you're working on here, and you're coming back to a much more rich environment, who knows what the team process is, and we move forward together. And it got really, wow, it got really big. How to keep it simple with 4 things. We're talking about curriculum, which, Zhao says, what is curriculum anyways? And it's a guess, especially when we're talking about personalized learning. It's not a textbook. It's not a cellophane wrapped thing from the ministry. Talking about instruction. How do we meet the needs with our learners? We all learn differently, different rates, different ways to represent our learning. Learning environment. I've grown, I'm a phys ed foods teacher. I'm like, how did I land in this section of special ed, so to speak? And learning environment has been one of my most biggest ahas, being in this field, that if we can help positive, welcoming, safe, calm learning environments, that can make a huge difference, just like this little device here. And then assessment, that whole process of assessment. Okay, so are we equipped? I want to go back to the brown, and Shelley Moore says, teach to the pins. How can we teach knowing all this and do things differently in the brown? And I just wanted to highlight the cycle of learning and applying, which we actually got our staff to think about as adults. This is our cycle. So it starts in the middle. Your classroom practices. We've gone to a few workshops, read a few books, had a few people to engage with, and then we develop our knowledge and beliefs, and then we start going. Okay? What if we set that up where we meet you where you're at, and then we get our knowledge and beliefs? That's so important, knowing our starting point, develop new practices, but if we put a guided inquiry process in there, if we collaborate, if we set up and host the time for conversations that matter, and reflect on that and develop, construct new knowledge, the appreciative inquiry approach, and reflect on that, how much more powerful could that be? And so as a staff, support services, where are we on that? And we could do the same thing with coordinators, we could do the same thing with our families, my volleyball team. Where are we in working as a team and being much more powerful? So as a system, how do we structure ourselves to, and I call them high yield strategies, to get the biggest bang for our buck for the resources that we have? old model. This is a Ministry of Ed slide from way back when. It is geared to a designation model. It's a race to designate. All our paperwork, all our actions, all our phone calls, we need to designate. Where are our assessments? And so I say the wrong drivers because we're focusing on the paper, not the people and the planning and the proactive piece. And then we land on this, in this model, well, I've got this wait list, this infamous wait list. What are we waiting for though? And you're ineligible, they're C, they're gray area kids, they're just hanging out there. What are we gonna do? And we're having the wrong conversations in my mind. So if we change this model to be focusing more on the learning and not the label, huge mind shift. How can we do things a little bit different, Shelley Moore style, where instead of working as cupcakes, how do we layer, mix the right ingredients? Who are the right ingredients? How can we layer on that support? How can we mix it properly so that we get a beautiful cake that makes sense? So this is a summary that we've been working on in the province. Just to sum it up, we need to unify, okay? We need to talk more, create common language, talk more together based on our beliefs, but the key piece in the middle, that continuum of instructional support, we are all aligned with curriculum and core competencies. Primacy of the classroom teacher is vitally important. We cannot be working on our own. We're called support people, support services. We're not separate services, so to speak. And we are working with one another, not for you, and not in isolation. The second piece I want to really emphasize here, which is in our menu of support, this diagram. You've heard of RTI, another acronym. I want to make sure. So we've enhanced it to be RTI squared, which is response to instruction and response to intervention. This is an adult framework. This is us. How do we respond? How can we be more responsive to the needs and the challenges and the strengths that we see in front of us? So a few things here. The green, primacy of the classroom and the teacher and the EAs who are in there. These are core practices. You'll see that the green goes the whole way of that continuum of support, not just the green and it's cut off in isolation. Then when you know more through classroom assessment and observations and what our kids can and struggle with, supplemental support, Shelley Moore calls that another shot of goodness. Because we're not responding here, something's not working. What do we do with that information? How about another shot of goodness, giving them supplemental support? Then when we're not responding to that, the kids, how do we get more intensive? And this is probably where specific one-on-one speech, counseling, behavior support might come in. But they're stacked, they're layered, they're all working together. It's not separate, the red, you go down the hall. The magic fix for the LA to fix you kind of thing. Also, it's gradient, and we can flex and flow and be resilient with that information. It's not cut and dried. Oh, you're at this benchmark, off you go to the LA. In math, in phys ed, it's all different. Also important to note is the size of the triangles. That this piece should be the largest, the green. Statistically, 80 to 85% of our kids should land in that area and needed to land in that area. And you go 5 and 1 to 5%, 5 to 10, 1 to 5. It should get smaller. If your needs go the other way, your triangle turns upside down. So your green, so like that quilt with the brown, gets smaller and smaller, and all those other pieces get larger and larger. A little analogy, so we just have the February 1701 information that just came back. So we are up 23. We've identified more students in the category of requiring intensive behavior supports. 23 more kids since September. Awesome. Identified some necessary supports. However, let's step back and look at that. As a system, We want to be preventative. We want to be proactive. Right now, we're going to have to protect services, absolutely, but what we want to do is prevent that kind of growth. We want the celebration to come the other way. We want our H categories to go down because we're doing wonderful things. So we want to grow the green, so to speak. So the keywords I want to emphasize here are proactive, processes here to prevent, and to get up to the top, to protect the services for those who need it the most. Okay, I'm not saying we're getting rid of speech paths, and I think that was one of they were like, what are you talking about? Like, no, we need you. We need you there, but we also need you in the green. So I'll refer to this coming up, how we can do things a little bit differently. So, if you wouldn't mind, in the menu of support, this is a draft, and so what you'll find in it, I'm just going to leaf through it. By department, so district itinerant resource teachers and the different areas, and if you're like me when I took a position, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, I'm like, a speech path? What do you work on? Or school sites? What do you do, right? So this would be very helpful so that you have some context. It's a conversation piece. It's something that's co-created so that when a resource teacher is now working with a classroom teacher, these are some of the things I can do, but these aren't the only things. This isn't the cookie cutter. I need to meet you where you're at. So it's just the start of a conversation. Page 5 is deaf and hard of hearing and the alignment with educated citizen. Going on to page 8, which is vision. And this comes from each individual who really wanted to share this with the board. This is your chance. What would you like to say in alignment with our BC Ed plan? And then I want to pause on page 11, if you wish. Not if you wish, I wish. To get into a few of the highlights. So last year when I landed here, it didn't take me long to figure out, oh my goodness. I'm spending a lot of my time in the red section of the continuum of support. Lots of calls, lots of quadrant 4 information, lots of reactive pieces, and it's like, can't work there. We need to do something here. And so part of that was how do we unify? So this is how Richard's position came to be. We called it not behavior support, but it encompasses much more. If we're looking at that continuum, it encompasses the green. So it could be school-wide, district-wide, also class-wide. So unifying our support in a systemic manner across the district at all 3 tiers, welcoming, caring, inclusive schools as the big headings, and a whole bunch of specifics fall into that, through the lens of positive behavior support. That supporting behavior is our responsibility, and the social justice lens of being best for the world as well as best in the world. And having 3 major components to it, and I stole this from Bob in Nanaimo. Everything we do should be educative, have preventative measures in it, and then also restorative, depending on where you are in the behavior scene, I guess, or social emotional. So Richard's position was much needed. I don't have that skill set specifically or that time set just to do this. This was a much needed platform, and thank you very much for that. I want to go back, sorry. Tim's also on there because last year when I'm having these conversations, I'm like, we need a Timmy. Because back in Fort St. John, this is exactly what we hired him for. This was his role. So Richard and Tim have been a marvelous complement. And how are we moving forward in this kind of stuff? Now, Richard starts off his sessions that he's been providing. We teach and support behavior not so kids can access the curriculum, but because it is the curriculum. And that is our role. We need to actively, proactively teach and support behavior. We can't expect kids to do what they don't know how to do yet, and that's our role. And then now with the core competencies, it's an easy slide in, easier buy-in, I hate that term, but how do we build this with our colleagues to support our children who have more challenges? Shelley Moore says the last barrier to inclusion is behavior. You know, we're doing really well in other areas, SOGI or kids with moderate mental handicaps, whatever. It's a little bit easier to look at inclusion for certain kind of areas, but sometimes when we get to that behavior piece, we get something else going on in our brains, and we need to help understand more about behavior. Because this was the traditional approach where behavior is more discipline. And how do we move to supporting, talking about, changing our responses, being in charge of, and self-regulation, and understanding, this is the big one here, that all behavior is the person's best attempt to communicate. So as a new person to SPED 15 years ago or whatever, that was one of the key things that really hit me with the functional analysis of behavior, because that helped me with my husband, helped me with my daughter, helped me with, you know, my friends. Because when you start realizing why you're emotional or why you're tantruming or why you're, it's like they're trying to tell us something. As a mom with a little baby, they're trying to tell us something. So when we look at it from that lens, all things change. So traditional approach is we spend 95% in reactive mode. Me on the phone last year going, wow, to how do we spend in the current approach where we're moving towards 95% is more on the process and the planning and the prevention. And then hopefully only 5% in the top tier. So far with the support sessions and unifying and doing this district-wide, not just for some people, okay, about 200 staff, all staff have been invited. Many sessions have been provided this year. And so we have 200 staff there. Then there's an Understanding Behavior 2, which is getting right into behavior planning. And I think we've had 2 sessions, Tim, so far. And that's more counselor, administrative, resource teacher, and getting into more positive behavior planning. We brought CPI back. The comment so far is, wow, where has this been? It just helps with our toolkit. It's crisis prevention. How do we respond? Yes, but better yet, the proactive preventative stuff, okay? And then of course there's some other pieces to the behavior. Ahas, Richard, what's the best thing? What have you noticed? The power of teams working together. It's not just that counselor or that administrator, it's the group, including the classroom teacher. And we're not trying to hide expertise, we're trying to build that together. So again, that collaborative approach. I want to speak a little bit to speech and language, and what we're changing there is who is doing the support. So we think speechies can only do up in the top. What we're trying to do is speechies know so much. Oh my goodness, they have such amazing wealth of information and a skill set. How can we be doing some of that in the green area? And this is hard to do because when we have a traditional mindset that this is what speechies do, you come in and you take my child out of class, you do one-on-one therapy, 20 minutes, once a week, whatever, and then you come back. That's still very important for those who need it. Okay, but we can't have speech wait lists of 300 per speech pathologist, right? That just sets everyone up for what is going on. So we carved out a little bit and called it an itinerant portion, I guess, of an SLP. So Nathan Giesbrecht, 2 others, Lisa and Michelle, all have a little bit where they can start. We need to start somewhere. And we're starting with classroom teachers. We're starting in primary at Coheman and Alexander, at Tanzer, and doing things differently in the classroom. Bonner also has some support from the itinerant. Again, proactive and preventative to protect and preserve. And so on your handouts, you have a variety, 4 different examples. There's the Tells and Let's Talk program. We do this wonderful kindergarten screen, And what do we do with that information? So our speech paths are working with the kindergarten teachers, with the EAs, with the learning assistants, with other adults, and setting up different programs in our primary classes. And it's play-based. I like how Nathan says the third bullet here, it liberates classroom teachers from teaching to actually facilitating language development. And how I think about it, you remember the old-fashioned Fisher-Price toys with the rings that go on top and they stack? So with speech-language development and our processing, sometimes we want to just teach how we've always taught, and it might be up here on the ring, but our kids are down here. So this is not going to stick or make sense. We need to come back the bus up, as Lila says, back the bus up to come here. Where are our kids? We know some information, and then we build on that. So it's very responsive teaching to the assessment information that we know. The executive club, helping kids with their executive functioning. A speech path and a counselor and an early ESL teacher and the classroom teacher and the LA, helping kids with the organization. When we're more organized, we can be more regulated and we can be more ready to learn. Learning language and loving it is just something we're trying right now, and components of it mixing in with Brenda's work around Tinker Trays, which I'll get to in a minute. I want to elaborate on school psych. You guys are going to get a much more in-depth session there around how the assessment process has changed. I want to speak to this slide here, so if you can think of, they put it in arrows. This is the pyramid. Spending more, and this is probably has already been in existence, but we need to do a better job at marketing it and creating an understanding as to what a school psych actually does. Not just level C assessment, that little tiny dot at the top. And much like what I'm saying about the speech paths, school psychs have so much more that can help us in the classroom and with our learning assistants. So trying to tip that back to how do we spend more time there with developing that toolkit. So that when we work our way up, is a formal level C assessment necessary? Or from what we know already, can that tell us what we can do differently? So September, October, the speech paths, we're working with LAs on who their kids are. What do you know about them? File reviews. What's working, what's not, some more strategies. And then work on your lists. Then some lists were developed. Some had 5 kids, some had 10, some had 15. And then they had another round of consultations with them. And as you talk, you develop more understanding as to what, hey, I never knew that, or this is what's happening when I do this, etc. And then an actual list comes in of 2 kids. And what's cool about this is now the parent comes involved and signs a referral. Not a referral way back here, and then we have this wait list of 40, and parents are going, where's my psych ed? Whereas, you know what, we're not there yet. You know, let's honor the process of all the wonderful work that happens pre-referral. And then if that's where we need to go, then that's where we go. But it's this dialogue that needs to happen, which really has been happening, but we need to be more explicit in communicating it. And we have tipped it a little bit. They'll be able to share a lot more information. I want to skip to hosting conversations that matter, one of my new mantras, because again, we're all under one roof, and be able to connect the dots. How can we bring people together? So I want to talk a little bit about Tinker Trays. And last year, Brenda Lee, our early learning coordinator, and talking about using speech paths to come to the kindergarten and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Brenda, you've got to think about Tinker Trays. If you get a chance, let's sit them down. But at that time, too much going on. This year, it was thanks to the careers people who were talking with a Tinker Tray, Tinker Cards. I'm like, okay, you're talking that. OT's talking this. Julie and Courtney were talking this, and Brenda's talking this. It's like, oh my goodness. How can we do a UDL, design it really big right from the get-go? So I just invited those people to come together. Ab Ed, Tech Ed was there, careers, ELL, with those people that I just mentioned, all under one roof, and talking about why Tinker Trays. Not what and what can we do, but why. And when we understand why? Then we can go, oh, then this, when we know this, we can plan differently with what we're tinkering, how the language we're going to be using. The OT offering, the biggest occupational therapy for kids, the occupation is play. And when she said that, I'm like, oh my Lord, how can we help kids play, right? And that's our role. And so that was like so powerful for us, like, and for everyone else to go, ah, I get it. That continuum of support and how we do this, pretty cool. It just gets stronger and stronger as growing in every other direction. This is on the last couple of pages, I want to say 24. Lots of different examples of this multidisciplinary approach. Again, an invite if you want to learn more. Just really encouraging the learning team to keep asking questions, keep talking out loud, keep having those conversations by their coffee machine and doing things differently. I wanted to head into the last part by talking about culture. And again, this is an inclusive document and a process of understanding. And it was a clerical, what would you like to present? And one of the most profound, or share, one of the most profound things was Pat, when I first took the job, and sitting beside her, and I'm trying to make sense, I need to rely on you, and she's just kind of looking at me going, are you crazy? And then growing 5 months later, and her comment at a staff meeting, at a separate table, and it came to me afterwards, but she said, I threw out my binder, my 3-inch binder. And so I followed her up with it, and I go, oh my God, what have I done? She's quitting her job, she's thrown it out. But she said, that 3-inch binder made no sense to me. What we're doing now, and the conversations, and we're included in staff meetings, and I can learn more about what everyone does. I feel much more involved. I can contribute, I can help look ahead, and problem find, and problem seek, and problem solve. That's pretty cool. In order for that to happen, it's the culture, it's the relationship building. So feeling really good, strong team over there in the district, great hearts. To sum up then, that this is a slide from, it's a study in Nova Scotia, maybe East Coast, that Wayne Schneller brought to our attention a number of years ago, that when we talk about supports, that what teachers think are the most valuable for inclusive education, maybe too tiny for you to see, but it's collaboration, 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 planning, collaboration with parents, EAs, classroom teachers, and the support people. So in reflecting, how are we setting ourselves, are we structured to ensure we talk more about the things that matter? And closing around with the culture, collaborating, understanding, trusting, caring, bringing it together, respecting one another, and together we have more power. So the last couple of slides that are in here are tidbits. Didn't know how to best share them, but it was kind of profound when you start looking at, okay, we have 39 staff members over at Support Services, and all the different roles. The on-site support services, and from there we go into FTEs of LAs and resource teachers, and finding out that we just don't have just LAs and resource teachers. So we have 37.7 FTE, but we have over 60 human beings filling those positions, and some of them have 3 hats. Which is when we talk about these people are usually the tier 3 people, and they have 3 hats, it's a lot of stuff going on in their lives, as well as the kids. The chart there, this came from Vanessa, around the different types of positions we have for educational assistants, and how we have grown over the last couple of years. And that needs to be coupled with the information on SPED data as to how we have grown. I think Jason had a document, and Karen supported that with some backup for me, 34 or 36% increase last year in SPED identification, 14% this last September, which also went to, look what we've increased in February again. Are we structured to support these increases as well? That's really big, so we need to do things a little bit differently. If you wanted more information around those categories, I have it. I got so much to share with you. You guys are probably thinking, oh, some other time, Debbie.
30 minutes, Deb.
Thanks, dear. Yes! That was my essay.
30.
Oh, come on, you guys. Actually, I was told 25. So, questions? Direct them to Tim.
Trustee Smith?
So how do we change the culture within our parents? So at DPAT meetings, wherever I go, it's always, can we please talk about, how can we get message to parents on doing things differently? And how can we get them to trust that that's truly the best path to set their kids down? How do we do that?
Are we talking parents of kids with special needs, or all parents and, yeah,
Kids.
who's our audience, right?
Well,
Parents
it varies.
overall. Yeah.
It truly varies. Like, how do we change that culture and get them to believe that it's truly the right way to go to get their kids most of what they need? Like, how do we get there with parents?
Can
Go for it.
I think a big part of it is making sure that our school staff get it too. Because I think a lot of the pieces that I feel, it depends, it might be a parent that's different perspective, a parent that has specific concerns with their child, or a parent that's just observing. But I think part of the factor is that we need to invest in our staff knowing our direction, and that's going to take time, and that's going to take opportunities to develop a skill set that we know that we're making a difference. But I think a key component to that, I guess, is staffs singing the same story or telling the same story, because it makes it really complex when we have not all staff sharing the same vision.
Trustee Thorne?
Yeah, I have a concern. I mean, I got stumped right from the get-go on the word assessment. I got stumped about EAs and who's doing it. Do they choose to do what they do, or is it chosen for them? Until a lot of the assessments are done, that's the biggest handicap we've got. And then people getting isolated. All of this sounds great, but I still think I have a grandson in Kohima. And if you hit the wrong button, he's a violent little boy, because I know he has issues. Yet he has yet to be assessed, and we have to deal with a teacher who says, I don't know what to do. I have a parent, again, much like the question I was just asked a minute ago, a parent it's not my kid, it's the teacher's fault. So given all that said, until I understand clearly from EAs, the people that work with the special needs, that's going to convince me that we're on the right path. This is a good start, but I'm just being realistic, because
Right.
I am a parent.
And we're talking, I want to say, straddling two horses. We have the big picture and how we need to change our practices here and moving the mass along with us. But our kids here who are really struggling, what's the process right now for them, right?
But we need to find a way to speed up the assessments. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I guess a big part of that is understanding assessment and all the various forms of assessment along the way. That do we need to invest, for example, a week of that formal level C assessment, or how can we step back to that bigger circle around what are we observing, what are we seeing, good file review, all the information, and learning from that. Because really, a psych ed assessment at the end should only be confirming what we already know. And so we need to get better at this and this and this. But that's the process and the conversation. And are we structured we're working on that, trying to bring our LAs together, trying to bring our classroom teachers together, trying to bring our administrators together, and understanding that process.
Yeah, that's something that, to me, that's the big E. That's the big one. If we get past that, we'll be fine. Until then, I remember back in my day when I was not the smartest kid in the class, they sent me to go run a table saw to make little cute birdhouses. And it was good for me, because I realized I had problems. and it gave me reason to go find myself, my own way of fixing it.
Mhm.
You need to, all your assessments, you've got to involve that child. And that teacher that's in there with him or her has to have very clear understanding of what he or she is dealing with.
Yes,
And you talk about a team, that team needs to sit down and discuss the reality of the situation, not what I would do, what I could do, what we should.
I agree. I agree.
I'll
And
just
that's
stop
the
there,
whole, no, exactly.
Because I'm
That's what we're saying,
stopped
Joe.
there.
Yeah, that, and then so the whole understanding behavior, and that's communicating something, so let's have that conversation, and yeah, there's actually like Einstein behavior too, right, as to what are the trigger, what's happening before we get the behaviors, and then we need to do something different here. It's a whole process, but that is definitely a big part of what we do, behavior and challenging behaviors and inclusive ed.
Trustee Croft?
I think we do have parents in the system who feel that they have to wait for a formalized, full-on assessment before they can access services. So if a parent has a child that they feel needs more support, rather than wait for an assessment, what do they do?
Right, so it's okay, that's unifying our processes, right? Because then traditionally, it would have been, and I'm just going to generalize here, you put in a referral, but let's honor this work here. Classroom information that we have, classroom teacher, observation, we have files, report cards from before, so that's all part of it. And then learning assistant, and then school-based team, so the power is in that on-site conversation, right? And then at a certain point, so now we've scripted out pieces to help people with that when do you include outside people? And then we get into more of the formal assessment process. But it starts at the home, or at the school home.
So, student has lovely teachers, has a lovely family, for some reason, the parent still feels that there could be some more support. So, I'm not saying anybody's missing anything, but the parent wants to trigger something, wants to trigger more support for their child. So, who do they talk to? How do they voice it?
Again, it's our school team, and understanding a psych ed assessment doesn't come with any funds, like, you're not gonna get more funds, right?
Well,
So
and
the
I'm not-
support is the people in the school.
So
How can we do
instead of
things
an
differently?
assessment, this is what I'm hearing, is that quite often, just take that assessment off the table, this is what we're going to do. Is that part of where we're going here?
Yes.
Okay.
So just a reminder to trustees that, Deb, you're coming back
I'm coming back, the school psychs are coming back, I'll
Yes.
come back with them.
on assessment?
March 27th, yeah.
Okay. Trustee Spilsbury and then trustee Smith.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. It really shows the complexity of support services and the system and how you're moving differently. I was just thinking about our opportunity right now to provide feedback on the funding formula. And I believe the funding formula is all at the top of your tier, not at the bottom for all kids. Could you comment on that? Like how could we request a change in the funding formula that would assist this kind of vision? Okay.
We have been engaged, yes. Right now, it's a race to designate, and that's what gets your funds for the low incidence. And our school psychs are only involved with 3 categories of the 12. The other, and there's 2 other ones that are just more locally based, but not involving school sites. The other, I don't know what's left, 8 categories are based on the medical system, whether you get a pediatric, autism, fetal alcohol, seizures, whatever. And so that is really setting up inequities of families who can get to, or families who are ready to. And because we're waiting for that, this is interesting, right? So we're trying to, as BCKs, being involved with the exact, how to massage it to be a non-categorical model, being based more on needs driven, and that has to be with all learners. And so how does that all mesh with everything we do, not just be separate, but it's interesting conversations. I could talk more on that, like BCKs, we're just formulating a nice little handout, because we've all been asked for as to how we can do things differently that's more equitable for all children with the resources that we have.
So just conscious of our time, and I've got Mr.
Thank you.
Allen, Trustee Smith, and Trustee DeGroot, and I have a question as well.
Wow.
30 seconds less.
30 seconds or less. And Deb got there at the end. I think the decategorization conversation, can more money be put into the system for districts on a population-based equation rather than categorizing and making the case every September through 1701? Knowing there will always be some that need that designation, but that doesn't mean the district processes have to change, and that we still need assessments, we still need to know how our kids are doing, we still need to have a bunch of that information. But if the money flowed faster, there'd be way less of the Lila time spent in dark rooms writing assessments, and more of that time available in classrooms with kids and with teachers and with parents working on the kinds of supports that need to be there. So it's rebalancing that equation into a sort of a decategorization kind of a model, which I know is something that's sort of being talked about right now, but
Thank you. Trustee Smith?
Only because budget's right around the corner, and quite frankly, I don't want to wait for you to come back. So, with change happening, do the school-based teams, like, what kind of budget do they have to draw on? Like, if we're truly putting all of this back towards the school and where they know the kids best, because let's face facts, that everybody down here doesn't know the kids as well as those teams know the kids. So how does that work? Are we like allocating budgets to school-based teams, or do they have a pool of money to be able to get the resources that the students need? Like, how does that work? Because we're putting a lot more, we're putting things back to the school now. We're not, we're doing things differently. And so how would that look? Or is that something that we're looking at budget time, or, sorry, I've just got a million questions in my head, and budget's right around the corner. Sorry, Trustee Hutchins. But I gotta know. Like, is that
Is there
gonna
a
look
short
different?
answer to that big question?
That's a good discussion. That's a really good discussion.
That would be a no.
No short answer, but the
You
money
could,
is needed.
where we're coming from to do this kind of work absolutely needs the time. How does that look like? How do we support collaborative learning environments, right? What does that look like? Do they have a budget? They have a small budget to support IEP meetings. We need to back that up and have some planning time.
Mhm. Okay.
Trustee DeGroot?
Okay, I was at provincial council last week, and I have to tell you that everybody there is saying we have to change what we're doing. We have to fund by the child, not by the designation. And your slide, the visual one on unified school system, could I possibly have a copy of that, please?
Which one? The Vision Unified Systems?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, because I think that will help in our discussions at the board table when we look at the funding formula. Thank you.
Deb, if I had a takeaway, besides the complexity of the learning services delivery model, is the word collaboration and discussion. And collaboration and discussion, I think we just, in the process, or we did adopt a calendar for the next 3 years that calls for a PLC model, 2 hours every second month. I'm not sure if that reflects the level of collaboration you are suggesting we need.
There's whole school, and then there are like specific individual needs. The concern that Joe brought up, right, that we also need time to do that. We need big, but we also need very focused conversations on more intensive scenarios. So it's a continuum, a collaboration along that continuum.
I was hoping the short answer would be we need more PLC time delivered into our timetables.
That would be awesome.
That'd be the special-
I would want to do that too. I got a big.
Out.
That would be awesome. By carving it off for something very focused and specific, so it doesn't get watered in with everything else.
need more collaboration time, yes.
We need more collaboration.
Yes,
I had the last question.
bar none.
No,
Trustee
actually, only because Deb said she would get back to why she has an FM system around her neck, and she didn't.
Oh, sorry. Was that better for you guys to listen
It
to
was
me
wonderful.
through this? This is not only for deaf and hard of hearing. We all have hearing challenges. You all hear different parts of people's speech. When you're talking to Siri, for example, and you get, so you can imagine a child listening to a classroom teacher or a colleague and what they're hearing. And so this muffles or blocks out white noise, right? And it also brings a sense of calm. When people talk in it, it slows us down. My husband's worry was I was going to talk way too fast because I got so much to say. But when you speak into this, it helps bring things down. It's calming. When you pass it around and the kids take care, they love talking into the mic. We all focus. The name of it is called Front Row System. So it's like you're all in the front row. So I was wanting to make sure Rob is hearing every single word.
The question is that a microphone and a speaker?
Faces right
Whatever that piece is called, speaker system is back there. They're about 1,500.
That speaker's there?
Yeah,
Sounds like it was coming.
I know.
Voice of God.
Yeah.
The voice of God.
It is, we would like to see all of our primary classes equipped with that. It just helps bring things down. And so when we're ready, when we're regulated and ready, we're ready to learn, right? More ready to learn. So in my mind, every classroom should have them, but especially our primary.
Okay, on that
One
note of
room at a time.
Magic, well, thank you, Deb, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay,
Larry, if we could just wait and.
Larry,
Carmen,
we have a interlude here. We have Carmen from DPAC. Carmen, do you want to grab that seat and join us at the table?
And if you don't mind, I'll sit. I prefer to sit than stand and make a bigger presentation. Let me just delayer a little. Take my work hat off and DPAC hat on. Thank you for the opportunity. So, good evening. As you're all aware, I think you know all of you know who I am, but there's a couple of faces. So I'm Carmen Sundstrom, the Vice Chair of the Cowichan Valley District PAC, and I'm presenting to you this evening following a late invitation to do so in response to a letter submitted to the Board of Education Trustees by the Cowichan Valley DPAC Chair, Carolyn Kerman. Carolyn was not able to be here at such late notice as she is currently chaperoning the Cowichan Secondary Junior Girls Basketball team, who have been the first Cowichan Secondary Junior Girls team in over 20 years to represent the school at the BC Secondary Schools Provincial Championships. There you go. All right. So this team comprises of 11 grade 10s and 4 grade 9 students who span the 2 Cowichan secondary campuses and have been trained by a dedicated teacher who has provided the opportunity to build this team since the current grade 10s were new grade 8 students to the Cowichan Secondary Coimachin campus. This team practices at both campuses due to the high demand for gym space at Cowichan Secondary. Each girls proudly sports their Cowichan Secondary athletic wear and are a fine example of the strong Thunderbird family. DPAC submitted a letter to the school trustees as a response to some particularly involved parents at Cowichan Secondary School and some of its feeder schools who were surprised by the recent notice of motion to cease the Cowichan Secondary dual campus model and operate the 2 current campuses as 2 separate, independently administered and run schools. This has been suggested with less than a month's notice and a distinct lack of open and transparent consultation. The tight timeline has been cited as a need to ensure appropriate administrative work and staffing be completed in time for the new school year. At no point since the beginning of the current school year has this been brought up for discussion with the current school PAC, which meets on a monthly basis. The DPAC letter was issued on February 23rd, following concerns that were raised at the Cowichan Secondary PAC meeting on February 14th and in a letter to the superintendent at the Cowichan Valley DPAC meeting on February 15th and again at the district advisory meeting on February 19th. The DPAC letter requested an opportunity for a clear and transparent open consultation regarding the Cowichan Secondary dual campus and be made available to current dual campus and also the feeder school parents, prior to any decision being made by the Board of Education on March 6th. It's highlighted that the initial letter sent to all dual campus parents required some clarification regarding the intent to end the dual campus model by establishing 2 separate independently operating facilities, and it suggested an amendment or a reissue of the letter from the superintendent. Your response through the board chair has been that the district made a decision to seek feedback via email only. The questions raised by DPAC and parents who had offered feedback had been addressed through a Q&A sheet posted to the school district website. The existence of the Q&A, however, has not been communicated to dual campus parents by the district or the school staff. In fact, the only school parent community that DPAC's aware of that were communicated, sorry, let me try that again. In fact, the only school parent community that DPAC was aware or communicated to regarding the existence of the Q&A was Ecole Cobble Hill through an email to all parents from the principal on February 23rd. Parents also have some concerns regarding the validity of some of the Q&As. It also stated that some of the concerns raised were in operational nature and would not form a part of the consultation process. And finally, that this meeting would be the last opportunity for DPAC to share any new information or concerns regarding separating the campuses. We would like to remind the board that through the School Act, DPAC is the legislated parent voice at the district level. And as trustees, it is to you that we entrust the education of our children in the Cowichan Valley. DPAC's work is based on concerns brought forward to monthly meetings by DPAC representatives of each school. It's also an open forum to discuss issues that one school may feel they are dealing with in isolation, but through sharing of concerns, it can often be the case that it occurs at more than one school or even perhaps district-wide. With enough planning and notice, the DPAC has assisted the board and the school district admin team in obtaining the parent perspective on matters under consideration. This, of course, takes time. That one thing we all need more of, especially when there are regularly scheduled reports and ministry requirements such as budget and school calendar that also provide feedback on. The current students and parents of the Cowichan Valley have had more than their fair share of change over the past decade or so. Some of those changes have been hard to take, especially the closing of some of our schools and the elimination of our middle school program. Our district was elimination of a middle school model. Our district was not in the financial position to sustain. With open and transparent consultation, this change was accepted and reconfiguration went relatively smoothly. Some of these changes have been enlightening, with these same students being guided by teachers and staff through a major transformation of the BC curriculum and the methods employed to deliver and report student success. Parents have learned to roll with the flow, always easier to take when there has been a full, open, and transparent consultation of what the options may be, to know that they are generally being listened to, and all the gathered responses collated and presented. When parents feel that they have the opportunity to be part of the process, this in turn helps them accept and buy into the new ideas. Whilst the board have felt that these are operational concerns in nature, they are examples of aspects that parents can assist school administration in developing. Prime examples of why our PACs exist. Some more recent examples where things have not gone to plan and parents have felt the system has in some way not been as open and transparent as it should have been, revolved around the Cowichan Secondary and its slightly awkward dual campus. Conceived of an idea to align the secondary schools in this district, bar the Cowichan School, to a recognized 8 to 12 model, there just isn't space to house them all in one building, although that for now remains the long-term plan. 2 years ago, a similar announcement was made by our superintendent that the dual campus wasn't working, and the board had been advised that 2 schools, both grade 8 and 8 to 12. Sorry, let me try that. 2 years ago, a similar announcement was made by our superintendent that the dual campus wasn't working, and the board had been advised that 2 schools, both grade 8 to 12, but with different programs and facilities, would be the best approach for Cowichan Secondary School community. That came out of a special open board meeting on January 18th of 2016, with a report back to the board for consideration on February 2nd. You probably remember how that was received, and 10 days later, on January 28th, the scheduled public consultation meeting was postponed and to be rescheduled for the fall of 2016. Couch and Secondary PAC has held a meeting every month in the intervening timeframe, with the exception of each July and August, and to their knowledge, that meeting has never taken place. It is, in the intervening months, some localized issues regarding homelessness and drug use in the vicinity of both school campuses, but more overtly in the Quamitchin campus, have been discussed at the community level and during PAC meetings. It may have been through these and individual submissions that the school district has heard loud and clear that parents would like to reduce or remove the need for grade 9 students to travel between the two campuses. It's certainly a possible and less significant change. DPAC would suggest that a comprehensive survey supported by accurate information which invites clearly defined answers would have been a better option to ensure valid, measurable, and quantifiable data on which the board can make a decision. Presumably, all the feedback that the district has received to date, including that sought through the feedback email, will be collated, made public, and presented to the board. Of course, the removal of names or emails for personal protection may occur, but DPAC may request to see that, just to take a look at the validity and whether or not it's measurable. In conclusion, as this is our final opportunity for DPAC to present this topic, we have a few questions. One, does the board feel that an open invitation for parents to email feedback was the best choice of information on which to base such an important decision on as splitting Couch and Secondary into two schools? And what assurance can the board offer that the information on which they are to base their decision is accurate and valid? What exactly is the motion the board will be voting on next Tuesday? And will the board be open to ceasing travel between the campuses but retaining the dual campus model?
Thank you, Carmen. Is there any questions of clarification of Carmen? Mr. Allen, did you want to make a comment at this time or not? Carmen, can we have a copy of that?
Yes. Can I give you a nice digital copy instead of it all marked up? I will send it out today.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Cross?
I just want to say thank you for coming today. I know it was late notice and I know everybody had to kind of change things around. So thank you. And I know that you and Carolyn and everyone has put a lot of effort into those very careful and thoughtful processes and opinions. So thank you. Thank you.
And Trustee Croft, thank you for speaking on my behalf. Perfectly so. Thank you, Carmen. Okay, we do have our next presentation is Larry Madden and Brian Goff.
I'll switch places otherwise.
Deb got 55 minutes. What do I get?
There's the questions.
Yeah, I'm just bugging. That's all good.
The questions.
You just never know, we might just be
Maybe
full of
go and ask questions.
I hope we are.
No, you would want some.
I'm sure that doesn't
There you
fall
go.
out.
That's it.
So about
It's a plan.
And go.
a couple hours before the presentation today, Rod said, can you put together a one pager? So I've just whipped this up. There you go. You pass it over. I'm so sorry. That's actually a poster that I shrunk down for you, and the print is tiny. I'll put something in that. You're gonna need a magnifying glass for that.
Worse than Bob's reports.
Does somebody have a remote for? Kick it. Whoa.
Oh, wow.
I didn't receive quite the same reception with mine.
Because you respect our vision. And sound.
And so, yeah.
You know, I noticed that that device did keep Kathy and I quieter through the whole presentation.
Yeah.
Nobody
It
asked
may
to separate
help.
us
It may
even
help.
once.
Excellent. Oh, we're only on one. Okay, cool. That will work. So, I think everybody knows me. I'm Larry, Principal of Careers. I'm here to talk with Ryan Goff and talk a little bit about careers today, kind of give you a little bit of a snapshot in 10 minutes or less of all the things that we've got going on here. So I'm gonna talk fast, maybe I should throw that mic on to slow myself down. But just to get through it, what I did, we presented at the ITA Youth Day back in November. We were invited to talk about some of the cool things going on in the Cowichan Valley. So I've taken that presentation, dropped a few things and kind of condensed it down for you. So for those who aren't aware, we've got 2 partnerships for dual credit. We're partnered with Camosun College. We're also partnered with Vancouver Island University, Nanaimo campus, as well as the Cowichan campus. And those are our big partners that we do a lot of our dual credit stuff with. The Camosun College partnership, it's actually called the South Island Partnership. We pay some money into it to be part of this cool partnership. We get a lot of perks out of that partnership. The big thing is we're part of 4 other school districts, and we come together regularly to talk about all the cool things going on in our districts, lots of sharing opportunities. We also talk about the student seats that we got and sharing those seats. And the big thing that they've been diving into the last couple of years is pro-D opportunities for teachers, getting teachers down to the college and prepping them so they could prep our students better for college life and university life. So lots of cool stuff. We've also got our VIU partnership. Keith Chiquin, he was hoping to come tonight, but he had a conflict. For those who are coming next week to our ITA evening dinner, he'll be there for that. He is the big driver behind a lot of the stuff that we do with VIU, and many of you remember Ron Nunweiler. We're kind of floating on the coattails of the stuff that Ron and Keith set up, including the Trade Center. Everybody been to the Trade Center? If you haven't had an opportunity to go and you want to check it out, reach out and we'll take you there. And that's one of our biggest successes has been the Trade Center, bringing that cool opportunity to the Cowichan Valley, not only for dual credit students, but for adults as well. Whereas many of these adults and most of these dual credit students would not have made the trek to Nanaimo or Victoria to participate in these trades opportunities. The partnership has been incredible, and the tripartite agreement that was set up with Cowichan Tribe School District and VIU, that was the kind of the thing that started the CTC, the Trade Center, going. So we've got lots of First Nations partners. One that I want to talk about today and kind of highlight is our Malahat partnership. Our RBMW program, I say our, because we share it with VIU. Our RBMW and our carpentry program have built 7 homes there over the last 4 or 5 years, 4 years.
Sorry, what does RBMW stand for?
Residential Building Maintenance Worker.
I should have known that.
Yeah, and that actual program that we started about 4 years ago was predominantly First Nations students participating in that program. And you'll see by the next slide here, from that program, many kids have bridged into youth apprenticeships. They're actually young apprentices now, which is really, really cool. And many of them are working on the lands at Malahat, continuing to build houses beyond what we've done with
Malahat Nation hiring many of the grads from this program to continue the work after the houses
betcha.
are built.
They got full crews running, and not only full crews running on Malahat Band, those crews are now running outside of the band land. So pretty cool opportunities. We're trying to engage with all of our First Nations. Ryan's been out to a number of sessions with different band groups trying to sell some of the stuff that we do and trying to engage more and more Aboriginal youth in youth apprenticeships. And he'll talk a little bit more about that. So lots of cool opportunities that we're trying our best to set up for our Aboriginal learners. So Ron, you want to come and talk about some of those?
Sure. Yeah, so I started this position, I guess, last year, and I was kind of a one block. I was teaching at Cal High for the last 17 years, teaching automotive there, and so I was pretty into like full apprenticeship system and knew all the ITA ins and outs. And then I got into this, and Dave Bell said, "Hey, I signed a contract with the ITA, and we got this grant, and we need to get 20 apprentices." I said, "Well, how many do we have now?" "We have 2. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, how are we gonna do that?" So, anyways, and I was like this, and I went around, and I was in the conference calls and asking people, and Langley has 17 this year, you know, and like Richmond has 3, right? And so, but anyways, last year I just started hitting the pavement, going, talking to a lot of people in the community, a lot of businesses, a lot of students, and got the word out. And now my phone just won't stop going zzz, 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 and that's what I was doing over there. I was just getting a Cobblestone at 5 o'clock for a meeting with an employer there. Now it's kind of snowballed. So now we went from, well, I guess it was 4 apprentices, not 2, and now we had 31 last year and 110 course claims. So there's, that was last year, so a course claim, when a student is a youth apprentice, it's different than a normal apprenticeship. It's that they get high school credits, as well as they get $1,000 when they complete 900 hours. So it's a smoking deal. Also, the employer then gets to write off 10% of their wages, or if it's a red seal trade, or 20% if it's non-red seal. So it helps the employer, it helps the student out for getting through graduation to high school, and it gives them $1,000. It's like super easy sale.
Sorry, how does the employer get 10% off?
They get to write off their, because they're now an apprentice, so it's actually only on the first, like, I think it's $20,000 or $20,000, so up to $4,000 that they get to write off. But like, I went to the brew pub and I said, hey, if you sign up every one of your kitchen workers, you
get one for free.
Get one for free, 5 or 6, whatever, right? Because like they're only making $10,000-$15,000 annually, so you sign up enough and you have, get a free employee every once in a while. So that's and they're like, oh, okay, here you go. but also, but the main thing is like I said, a lot of employers, right? Instead of being like a carpenter's helper or helping out in the kitchen, you're opening opportunities for these students. The students are now not just a line cook or a carpenter's helper. I'm a chef's apprentice, and so hopefully they can carry on. It's basically opening doors and opportunities for them. It's that weren't there before. And so now we have, you went to the next one? Okay, so now this year we have 86 apprentices right now, and I have 43 more that I have to get to. I'm trying to crack 100 this year, but it's just a matter of time and energy. Yeah, I'm running out. So yeah, we should have 129, and then there's a whole bunch of cash incentives for this for the district. So we get 4 course claims per person. And you can talk about the dual registration.
Yeah, so we do, that's our goal, is to get 4. We got to work up to it, because after 120 hours we make 1 claim. After another 120 we make another. So we've got some kids who, they've only got 1 claim so far, whereas others, they're already 3 claims in, and here we are halfway through the year. But we nudge too. We're finding that they're all over the place. It's just going and talking to students in schools and talking to employers. We set up a meeting with Brew Pub, the manager down there, and he said, "Oh yeah, well I got 10 kids that are in high school right now." I said, "Whoa, let's work with you. We'll do the paperwork. We'll get all of them set up."
Yeah.
And the big advantage, especially for these kids, many of them would never have gotten registered with ITA. They would never have started their path to becoming a Red Seal. Now we're starting that. I got friends that are my age that are still not a Red Seal, and they've been working in carpentry forever. They never actually registered with ITA. So this is a way that we can get them jump started on that path, getting the 4 credits. 2 are grade 12 electives. They count towards their scholarships, right? Because it's grade 12 to boost their GPA. So there's lots of benefits can spin off of this. And they get $1,000.
Yeah.
And we've been giving out checks. We've given out, I think, $10,000 so far since we started doing this. They have to finish the 900 hours before they get the $1,000 check. So they're slowly starting rolling in.
And they have to finish before August 31st, they turn 19, and they have to get a C+ average in their grade 12 courses.
Yeah.
And the really neat thing is though too, like I said with the, I went to the Malhat. Malhat's the first one I've successfully done, and they're now like a corporate sponsor, so they can sponsor basically, they have subcontractors that they use as their designated sponsor for the Red Seal people, but now they can sponsor all their youth. And so they had like last year, they had I think about 10 of their youth that were sponsored 12. So it was really fantastic. But then it's just growing like crazy. Now everybody's calling me. It's just bizarre, right? And it's like,
well, better than that too. We've got employers calling up and saying, "I've got a vacant spot right now. I want to hire a youth apprentice. Do you have anybody?" Yeah. So we were able to bridge now our youth. That's called youth working trades, the apprentices. The youth training trades, which is the old ACET. The kids that are doing our dual credit opportunities will say, "Yeah, we got 9 graduates coming up in PC1, Professional Cook 1, in March. We can talk to them. We'll get them set up with you." So we're making those connections now between employers and VIU programs, which is really cool.
So what changed? Is it just our investment in more human resources that unleashed this, or?
So I made a pitch. I made a pitch to Rod and Jason. I said, if we tie the funding generated through youth working trades, the youth apprentices, to staffing, we can generate some dollars. I know we can. So there's incentives built in. Ryan knows the harder he works, the more chance is that I'm going to get another person in to give him a hand. And so we're flying. And we were, by using this model, we were actually able to, over the years, hire Dan Norman on, who works at our trade center. He supports kids daily down there. And hire on Ron Glass, who's supporting him as well as supporting our academic dual credit students, as well as doing all the cool K-9 stuff. So let's get to that. I wanted to share just briefly the data. So go back in time when it was just me and David Bellis, way off the corner of my desk, trying to run careers. And these were the kind of the numbers that we had. 385 students in career activities. And then in 2016, we grew. When Ryan came on, it was me and Ryan and Dan part-time and a little bit of David's time. We grew a little bit, and we hit to 565. You can see it at the bottom here. 565 students starting to engage in careers, activities. And in September, we grew even more, and we're projected in May to tip the scales at over 900 students in careers. This is getting kids a jump start on their career path, so they're better prepared when they graduate from school and moving on to the next year. So pretty cool stuff. And I could talk a long time about all that stuff. If you want to learn more, reach out to me. One of the bigger shifts that we've seen here are increased numbers in youth work and trades. These are the apprenticeships. Youth trade skills, explore trade skills, which is actually one course credit where they're actually getting sample careers in high schools. We never did that really before, and we're starting to grow that. Work experience, we never really claimed before. And I did the same pitch, so that's pushing staff back into high schools. So we can have work experience teachers in all the high schools. And our youth trade sampler is up here as well. 18 students last year. I got us $40,000 more this year from ITA to run 2 more programs. We got one in Chemainus and one in Cal High. So I just kind of talked a little bit about that staffing. Our career staffing has grown where it used to be me and David kind of running solo, doing what we could, to now we've got the 4 district career staff. That's me included, Ryan, Ron, and Dan. We got career counselors in every high school. When I say high school, I'm including Seawalk in that. 5 career secretaries, and now WEX / their workforce training certificate teachers in every high school. One high school has 3 blocks, another one has 2, and the other ones have 1. But because of that, incentives pushing back into them, where it was, they've got a collective of about 7 blocks this year. Next year, we're looking at it being doubled to 14, which is pretty exciting stuff. Yeah. And I talked about the promise of incentive. That's pushing the numbers up. And this is the thing that I'm talking about when I go to staffs. I think there's still a little bit of a misperception out there that, oh, the district's paying for the career department. No. We are more than self-funded. We're not only self-funded, Jason will attest to this too, we're generating dollars that are going back into the district to support other programs. So that's the model that we've created. And it's working well. And that's why...
Question on that last one?
That's why ITA is actually, they asked us to go speak because you heard, Richmond District, 3 apprentices. And that's the theme around the province. We were on a conference call the other day. How many you got? It's a range between 2, 3 to 20. And then we pipe up, yeah, we're hoping to hit 100 this year. It's us and Kamloops are the only ones that are even busting more than about 20 to 30 apprentices. Yeah.
So you keep talking about claiming course credit.
Yeah.
So if I'm a secondary student in grade 10 going into grade 11, I work this summer, and I'm on the secondary apprenticeship program. So I work 400 hours. I couldn't work 400 hours. Say I work 300 hours in the summer.
So we would go back in time and we'd make 2 course
Yeah.
claims on that.
So on that one, I would
go.
go meet with the student, we cross enroll them so that the student was at their home school. We cross enroll them through our school, and so if it was that age, it would be a DL, or if it was older, 16, it would be a CE claim, and then so it's a claim on top of their actual 1701 funding for their school, and then I would go in and do all the work and go to the employer because I'm not tied to a school that classes like I used to be. So I go to the employers, do the site inspection. Fill all the forms out with the student, and then, like I said, my phone's going off all the time because those students are all texting these days, and they're texting me, and I'm texting them. How many hours do you work this week? Okay, take a photo of your pay stub. You know, text me it, and then
So-
I log.
To kind of put it in perspective, when I say course claim, it's about, DL's a little bit less, but let's just use an easy number of about $900 per course. We're hoping this year that we're gonna tip over 200 course claims. Right now, we're about 146-ish. So that's $180,000 that'll come to the district, and we've got an
That's-
arrangement how that works.
That's just for,
Goes and pays
that's
for
just for,
staff.
like
Yeah.
the stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like this apprenticeships.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of other course claims.
Yeah, so in addition to that, we're out there trying to get grants too, to try to further fund and support careers through the whole district. The top one, that was, we didn't, it was just a given, every district got it, we helped put together the grant application, 3-year grant for $205,000, so that built 20 of these things.
I think what's different though is how we spent it.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that was a different than the rest of the province, investing early as well as welding curtains and new arc welders and a variety of things, also investing in the early years.
Yeah, we targeted about $24,000 to the younger years, so that's what these maker carts are. This is ADST, Applied Design Science Technology, where they're in schools and they're doing the maker way, they're doing design thinking. This one's not filled, sorry. And then the trades trolleys, we're gonna have one in every elementary school.
So, just, what is that cart, Larry?
This, or this one?
It's an old,
This is an old TV cart that I was sitting in our computer lab and I'm looking at this in the corner, and we were talking about maker carts. They're gonna cost us about $2,000 just to buy one. I said, come on. So we took old TV carts that were just basically, I found them in storage, and our alternate kids built these things.
Nice.
So they built 20 of them for me.
Yeah.
And then we just go and buy
You
the
load
plastic,
plastic
throw it
in
aside, and then we've got a box of supplies that goes with it, goes out to schools,
Yeah.
and
And
then
then
they
they
load it
have
all up.
labels and they put like, what all the stuff that
Yeah.
you put in the.
They're pretty scrupulous. If you go to any school, say, hey, where's your maker cart? I've got 3 more to go out, and they're sitting up at the school ready to be loaded. So, yeah, all the schools have them now. And then the trades trolleys are the next big one, which is, you can see some of the trades trolley projects that Ron Glass has been doing.
Yeah. The trades trolley, it comes stocked with like these templates for the kids to do hammering and make a sign like that, as well as birdhouses and whatnot. And then Ron goes around and does the kind of.
So these things come loaded though with about $1,500 worth of tools.
As
They're
well.
all ready to go. So all they need to do is, we've done an in-service once, we got 2 more to go before the end of the year. Teachers come, they work with us, we show them how to safely use the equipment, and then they can go out and do projects with their kids. The trickle down, so I'm kind of jumping ahead in the slideshow here, but the trickle down from this is schools are now saying, hey, I want an extra set of hammers. So we've now purchased over 700 hammers for elementary schools since the beginning of the year. Is that crazy?
At a
Right?
discount, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
getting
Oh, yeah.
$5 a pop, but a Canadian Tire. Do you have one of the little ones?
No.
Well, it's in the trailer. They're tiny little hammers, but they work great for the kids. But, so back to the grants, so we've been applying for other grants. You can see they're just slowly adding up. Collectively, it's probably over $300,000 in grants. Yeah, just different grants that we can apply through, usually through ITA, but sometimes through the government. We got $5,000 from the government to run a summer program, which was pretty cool for doing welding and mechanics. Makerway grants and dual registration grants whenever any student does one of our programs at VIU, PC1, professional cook or welding, and then he grabs them and gets them into an apprenticeship, we get another $500 for that.
So that's the neat thing. So like
Yeah.
once a student completes a welding or any trade or any trade, I go around and I say, hey, help them get employment, and Dan helps me with employment. Once they get employed, then we get to start another apprenticeship. So this could be a year, even a year and a half, 2 years after grad. So it's kind of like extending the bookends almost, what we used to do, because it's always been like that, but we've never done that. We just said after grade 12.
It's grade 12 plus. Trying to get this guys into programs grade 12 plus.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is all the money that we're generating. Last year was over $1.5 million gross. The money that we're generating going back into our programs is now funding younger years. So we're running programs kindergarten right through grade 9. And what's really cool about this stuff, you talk about all learners, we did 1,100 gravity cars in 2.5 weeks. Every grade 6 and grade 7 in the entire district participated, and they were all engaged. The comments coming back from teachers and from admin That kid hates school. He came after that session and said, I love this, I want to do more of this stuff. They were just so excited. So kids hands on tools, getting them excited about it. And I'll show you a few pictures here. So actually, talk quickly. You want to share the grade 7 tri-trade?
I think, several years ago I came and did the I helped start the tri-trade, did the tri-trade. And so I mean, you guys know about this already at Cal High, so I started with Greg Farley years ago, built all the sets and kids, all grade 7s go around and do that, and that's very popular. It's a mad schedule.
Yeah, they get pretty excited about it. We did the summer programs that I spoke about. So we took 20 kids for welding and 20 kids for auto mechanics. The auto mechanics went down, we bust them down during the summertime to Camosun, and they got to take apart a motor and rebuild it again in their fancy new shops and learn about Camosun and auto mechanics as a career path. And then we did a welding program at VIU as well. You can see here, this is Bobby. He's actually a welding B teacher, or welding B student who did our dual credit program. And he came back to help the younger years.
Another thing, like, you can see the boots, like all the boots we bought, I had to go buy boots because kids need boots to go to college, and these are young kids. So now we have class sets of boots, so all different sizes for these kids, and coveralls. So you do this. It's just and with the career dollars, right?
And I think that program was a good example of sort of the entrepreneurial spirit, because you actually had to talk the ministry into funding this as a pilot, saying this can work, and no it can't, yes it can. And so they provided the funding sort of on a, let's see if you guys can really pull this off, and you actually doubled the intake.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, so what was really cool about that is that was the nudge back to the ministry. So my conversations with Mario Miniaci down at the ministry and Jen McRae, they're using that pilot as a nudge to the system to change it. Right now, funding for K-12 regular is September through to June. Why can't it be September to August? Why does it have to change the funding for summertime? Why can't we run summer programs? So that's been the nudge, and they're on it. I was just talking to Mario last week about that. The Youth Explore Trade Skills I was talking about, Dale Coombs out of Lake Couch is leading the charge, building tiny homes with kids. Really exciting stuff. I spoke about the trades trolley already, but here's a few pictures of the kids doing logging truck projects. We got pictures of grade 2s and grade 1s using the portable drill press. And just excited, big smiles on their faces. We got some pictures of kids during the gravity car using miter saws, the big miter saws. Exciting, yeah, exciting for kids. And I talked about the builds. CVAS students, all of our alternate kids are actually building these things, giving back. Trades trailer, you already saw it outside. That is fully outfitted. We can now go to any school site and set up shop in the parking lot, in the gym, and do a build of whatever we want. So we're ready to go. And that was thanks to Ron's grant about 4 or 5 years ago. We got that. Skills Canada, gravity cars. We had a major event last week, or 2 weeks ago. That was awesome, very well attended. We had 120 students there competing with 120 cars, and we raced through. We did over 500 races in 2.5 hours. And the best decorated car, thanks to Elizabeth, was the turtle car.
I picked it.
Yeah.
I didn't make it.
Yeah, and that little girl was beaming when she found out that she won a free trip around the race circuit. So she hopped in a car and got a trip, and she was just
they have to wear the
bursting.
helmet as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
so that was fun.
So that's really exciting. So from that, every school's got a team going into the junior skills and Skills Canada competition actually this Friday in Nanaimo for regionals. We're also doing sumo bots, where we did a sumo bot Pro D. That's part of Skills Canada, junior skills. What's really cool, last year we had 50 competitors for skills. We got 140 this year. And I'm hoping to go bigger again next year. Now that we understand sort of all the different categories, we've got teachers that are jumping on board with Vex Robotics and stuff, partnering with Glenn Posey. We've got some pretty cool stuff happening with that for next year. So those are competitions that are coming up. If they win, place first or second for the gravity cars, they get to go to Abbotsford. Provincials, and then past that, not for the juniors, but for the senior skills, they can go all the way to nationals,
Yeah, nationals
and then
are
world.
Edmonton this year, and then they go national.
And then
for
worlds.
the worlds.
Yeah, and your Hannah Diener, some of you have met Hannah, our Hannah Diener, she's going to be competing for public speaking. No idea under Skills Canada, there's all these
Nice.
categories you wouldn't put under skills.
That girl's gonna
Public-
change the world.
Public speaking is one of them. I'm hoping she'll do well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she'll do well.
Yeah, so I've talked about some of the coming soon. Cardboard boats, we'll throw the invite out to you. We're hoping to in June. We've already talked to the pool. They're gonna give us the pool for a few days, and we're gonna bring in every grade 5 and have them build cardboard boats. You think, you're all probably thinking these little boats. No, I'm talking full-size boats that
Full-size
you
boats,
sit in
cardboard.
and you paddle across the pool in a race.
With a paddle, not hands.
Yeah. So they got Thanks for that.
Let's see why they work together.
Yeah, lots of cool stuff. You've heard about our EAC program. So we're trying, big thing around dual credit, I'm trying to meet not only market demand, but community demand. What do we need? We need EACs in a bad way. So I approached Jason and Rod and said, I got a plan to create a program. We'll build one down here with VIU as the partner. And we did. We have 12 dual credit students and 22 adults. So we're providing program down here, not only for dual credit, but we'll bring it for adults as well. And we're gonna do another one in September. I'm seeing nodding, I'll take that as a yes, because I got you on the spot. Anyways, I already have for the next cohort, I've got 30 adults and 18 dual credit students who want to participate. What's really cool is this actually can count as step 1 for your education degree as well. Lots of cool things going on, and honestly, I should come back and talk about more of this stuff. We got a cool theater and some art, dual credit opportunities. Connie Watts, who designed the all the medals for the Olympics in 2010, she's going to come and work with 2 cohorts of kids, talk about a career in art, and do some cool projects with them. Looking at different samplers, I'm working on a virtual reality certificate program with VIU, so trying to meet market and district demand.
Yeah.
This is really cool when you look at these numbers here. So 903 kids engaged in careers in grade 10 to 12. Since this year, just this year, this is the number of kids we've gotten out and supported in all of our programs. Gravity Car is 1,100. Tri-Trade will be 550 by the end of the year. K to 7 through Ron's work, he's supported over 900 plus kids and it's still growing. Career Summer Program, we did 40 kids there, and the Cardboard Boat Race is grade 5, it's over 600 kids. So we're trying to get out and talk to kids about career paths and get them exposed to it. So, and we're changing lives. We're changing lives, and I want to just share a few stories here. I showed the picture of Bobby earlier. This kid at 15 years old in my office in alternate ed. I hate school, this sucks, I never want to do this, let me just drop out with his mom. And I did everything to keep him connected. He found a passion for welding when he did a trade trade skill program. And he went on, he's welding C, he did his welding B. This is Angel, young mom up at our school at Seavolk. She didn't know what she wanted to do, and I steered her to healthcare assistant. She did her healthcare assistant 4 years ago. She's now just finishing her LPN. She used the HCA as a stepping stone into an LPN program. This is Zach, another kid in my office, hated school, did not want to do it, had a grandfather who was an electrician. I said, why don't you go work with him for a little while, check out, see what it's like. Came back to me afterwards, said, I love it, this is awesome, this is what I want to do. We set him up with a dual credit opportunity down in Camosun. And he's now a Red Seal electrician, wants to come back and talk to kids. LD kid, could not read or write. We got him the adaptations at VIU. He finished one of the top of his class, represented our district at regionals, won regionals and went on to provincials. LD kid. This gentleman again, same thing. He got adaptations and he went on to provincials for mechanics for Skills Canada. How did he do? Remember?
Really well.
Yeah. And this is my best story. This is little Raya. She was one of our students years ago who really struggled in school. She was a really angry kid. Could not figure out why until we figured out that she had severe learning disability. We got her into hairdressing with adaptation, supportive instructor, graduated top of her class, and now is working at one of our most prestigious salons, The Loft in the Cowichan Valley, and she cut my hair yesterday. Yeah. So changing lives, and we're going to keep opening those pathways and changing lives for all these kids. So that's careers in a very quick nutshell. I could talk for a lot longer than that. Sorry.
Quick question.
Quick question.
Has everybody been at the Trade Center?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen, thank you for all your excellent work and changing lives.
Go coach. Can I come back and grab this like for a second?
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Pop that, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
Oh yeah, we got a meeting.
You get a little bit bored after those two. Okay, business and operations enrollment projections. Karen, you doing this one?
I am doing this now. Thank you. So,
Have fun following that.
as you know, we present our guess at how many students we're going to have on September 30th, 2018. It has to be submitted to the ministry by February 15th, 2018. So a few months in advance. So we start out by looking at the births, and we look at the ratio of how many kindergarten students historically have there been to the 5 years ago births, and we try and look at that. We iterate forward all the, the grade 1s to 2, 2s to 3. We think about the grade to grade transitions. Do we usually lose a few students in this grade, and do we gain some students coming in from private schools in a certain grade? So we think about our local knowledge on that. And of course, I don't have that much knowledge, only having been in this community for 2 years, so I rely on people like Debbie and Cheryl and Denise and Tim, and Jason has a lot of local knowledge. We looked at the Lake Bates report that you all saw as well, and we read that and we took that into consideration. We asked each of the schools, so Debbie or Cheryl and her team do that to say, what do you think you're going to have next year? So I look at that. It's kind of coming in the day after I need to submit it to the ministry, so I looked at it as best as I could, but I just had to send it in the way it was going. So we take that into consideration, because they know how many students they've had registered in the kindergarten program so far, but they're also guessing, because they know they might have 22 registered, but another 17 show up on September 4th or whatever, right? So we take all that into consideration. So, overarching, no, Jason thinks the same way I do. You gotta be conservative. You can't be a little bit aggressive, because if you're a little aggressive, say we think we're going to have 400 growth of students, we start doing our budget, we hire our teachers, we hire our support staff, and we only end up with 110 new students, not 400 new students. So we really err on the conservative side. So when Jason and I met and talked about it, and Rod gave input, and I talked again with Debbie, and we're like, okay, what are we gonna do here? Let's scroll it back a little tiny bit. So that document is the actual one that goes into the ministry. So the very first column on the left-hand side in the top third talks about September, and hopefully you have it in front of you. So we were funded for 7789.625. Thanks very much. So in the green there, I'm guessing we're going to have 7850.662. So you hear me saying those points in there, that's FTE versus headcount. And again, that's a total guess. We know that normally students in high school take, a little bit more than a full course load, depending on the school, so we try and guess based on that. So very conservative growth I'm projecting there. And I have to do it for 3 years. So again, very conservatively, the year after I'm saying 7922.172. So that's 72 students more, right? You can see I'm being very conservative in that growth. And the following year, again, 7997, so up another 75 and a half students. So made Jason's tummy feel okay, made my tummy feel okay, but it's really quite a guess. The ministry populates a slot there, you see where it says ministry, they populate and say that they think we're gonna go for 18-19, they think we're gonna only go up 9 students. For 19-20, they thought we'd go down 11 students, and for 2021, they thought we'd stay the same. So we take that into consideration, but.
Yeah, and these projections are pretty close to the Bob Yates projections as well. They align pretty well. He wasn't predicting, a high takeoff on growth, so we've aligned the enrollment projections quite similar to Bob Yates's.
So the next section is the students with special needs, with unique needs. So that's picking up the level 1, 2, 3 that Debbie and Tim were just sharing with us. So on the far left, you can see 6, 343, 94. That's our current, and we're projecting an increase there. And we know that we're going to have an increase because Debbie already just talked about. We've just done our count, and there has been an increase. So I completely relied on Debbie and Tim on this. I mean, I rolled forward all the grade ones that are a level 1 will be in grade 2 next year, but she's the one that has the knowledge as to whether that student is planning to move or whether that student will be in a different category or not in a category. So Tim and Debbie gave me their best estimate with tons of history of research, I know, and that's what I used for that. Same for the English language learning, and for those students who are only funded for 5 years, so I did iterate all those forward and drop the students off who've already had their 5 years of funding. Guessed our kindergartens will be the same as this year, that's all you can do. Debbie and Tim looked at that and said, that's good as we can know. Aboriginal education, I rolled the students forward and talked with Denise about it, and we just, again, it's an estimate, we're really not sure. Adult ed,
Karen,
talked
can I ask
with,
a question
yeah.
about why is the ministry on Avid quite different from ours? In fact, they're projecting far more.
they're projecting 1574, that's true, I don't know.
But
And
I see,
you're
sorry,
right.
1667 by 2000.
I was just going to say the same thing, that they're going quite a bit extreme. I don't know, do you know? I don't know. In our community,
It's likely based on some, the amount of growth that was from the prior year to the current year. And they're probably just saying if it went up by 2 or 3% this year, then it's gonna move that forward, not looking at the students in the respective cohorts. I imagine maybe if last year it was 1,500 and this year 1,529, whatever that ratio is, they're just multiplying and moving that forward. They would simply be doing a mathematical model at the ministry level.
Thank you.
for adult education, that was, I don't know, so I talked with Larry, I talked with Scott, the principal at Seabolk right now, and just, again, we just had to make some sort of an estimate. So I estimated 15 for each of the 3 years.
Is that our students at Wilkinson?
Yes, those 15 are the students from Wilkinson, that's correct.
Which is a fairly fluid group.
Yeah.
2 years less a day?
So you can see lots of conversations, lots of emails saying, can you look at this please, Denise, let me know am I, kind of on track here, and Debbie and Tim gave me lots of input, which was fabulous. And then dropping down a teeny bit, I'm not going to talk about it, but much about it. February and May we also have to guess, which again, I don't know. So I put in what I can guess, and again, trying to be very conservative, because now, the punchline on all this is now, this then forms our preliminary budget that we're working on right now. So if we're too wildly aggressive, we're going to build a budget that's not going to be realistic when we have to roll back our spending. So it's better to be conservative, and then later when we have more students on September 30th, that then forms our final budget that we've just gone through. So, any questions on that? I saw Randy looking at the charts. I did throw some charts together. Jason's also going to talk about them in his presentation. Just to show you, and it's really actually interesting to look at the little curve to show where we have been, where we went, and how we are slowly changing direction there. The last little chart, blue italics is the estimate, black down is the actual funded. The other chart, again, supports what Debbie was talking about in her presentation about unique student needs. Again, quite a increase in the workload in her department and the number of students that she's having to do the paperwork for, and is saying, is that really the focus we should be doing? Any questions?
Any questions of Karen?
Yes,
Thank you
it's
very much.
talk. Oh, you're welcome, thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Financial projections, number B. Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. This is Wade Phillips. So, we go through a regular cycle of forecasting, a regular process of forecasting our year-end balances. So we use a lot of assumptions when we do this, and this projection was prepared as of January 31st, 2018. And what it's showing you is that overall our revenues are expected to be up by just under $145,000. So if you look at the total revenue column, a big portion of that is in the miscellaneous revenue, and a lot of that is being generated from the International Student Program. You'll see that under our principal and vice principal salaries, we are projecting a surplus of about $73,000. It still holds some contingency that I have left in the final number. We've talked about having some money set aside in case the PSEC releases the compensation freeze. So if that doesn't get released, that number will actually be quite a bit higher because there's over $100,000 sitting in that account waiting for that release. I've just projected it as being expended. Teacher salaries are slightly over by $78,000, but on 32 million, that's pretty darn close, offset by the number up above on the principals. And then you can kind of just go down from there. One of the areas that we're paying a lot of attention to right now is our casual replacement. And in particular, we added $200,000 to the teacher replacement budget, and that has all been utilized or projected to be utilized. So what you see in there for the surplus is coming out of QP and the USW group. Under benefits overall, we're looking at right now projecting $331,000. The number to pay attention to is the one above that, $351,000, which is really a savings on MSP premiums that have come into play in the second part of this year. And then our utilities, we've done really well this winter. Looking at the numbers, that's where you see the positive $187,000 being projected as being under expended. Done really quite well this year on our utilities. The hydro is pretty close, but most of our schools are on natural gas, and the natural gas bills are nowhere near what they were last year. So we've done quite well there. So overall, at the bottom right now, we see a surplus on the current amended budget of $929,000 being projected. I will qualify that. The Classroom Enhancement Fund is experiencing the same pressures for the absenteeism rates. Of course, because we have to allocate a proportion of our absenteeism to the teachers that are in the Classroom Enhancement Fund, those 65 enrolling teachers. So it's right now appearing that we're going to be short there. We have brought that to the attention of the Ministry of Education because they are intending to fully fund the implementation of the Memorandum of Agreement. So I'm waiting to hear back on that. Hopefully we'll get some good news, but if not, I would expect to require somewhere around $150,000 of that surplus to offset the shortfall in the Classroom Enhancement Fund. But it is showing a district is in a healthy financial position. This is in addition to the $1.274 million that is sitting in surplus that has not been budgeted for to be expended. When I get to the next part of my report, I'm going to bring us back to that number. So because there's actually some significant pressures next year that are coming out of benefits and out of a new payroll tax that is going to be likely required to offset. Okay, so it's not all ahead. So there's no questions. I'll move on to
Trustee Spilsbury, can I take the chair of the meeting?
move on to the next. Okay. Last year we brought you, I think the last couple of years we brought you an annual budget preview. So kind of the things that we know we have to build into the budget and the things that we're thinking about. So this is a chance to make those sort of publicly known so that when we arrive with the budget reconciliation in March, they aren't things that the public and the board haven't heard about. So we're in the process of beginning to establish all of the cost pressures that we're expecting over the next year. Certainly looking at projecting our revenues, projecting our expenses. Karen's gone through enrollment, so I'm not going to spend a whole ton on the front end of this report. It's really quite technical, and it basically talks about the board's responsibilities when it comes to fiscal management and the School Act. I'd like to start right at the expenditure side, and it's going to be a slide or two back here. So what do we know? We know that next year employees of the district have bargained for wage increases. And next year for CUPE and the steelworkers, that's a 5% wage increase effective July 1st. And what? 0.5. 0.5. Well, that's the one.
What? Wait for bargaining.
Thank you for showing me the decimal point. We built it on 0.5. Followed by a further 1% on May 1st of 2019, plus economic stability dividend if there is one. Now the economic stability dividend this year is 0.4%, so the one that's coming for the next May. So we had to actually start out with all of that built into our budget as our starting point, and then add these additional pressures. So we know that should be funded through the grant, and the ministry in their budget announcement has indicated that is so. Teachers is the same, 0.5 on September 1st, and another 1% on May 1st. Again, possible economic stability dividend. Not funded, things we need to put in the budget. There's an election. And the past 2 elections have cost approximately $100,000. So that becomes a board cost in the year of election, and the savings in 3 years after that. The principals and vice principals not covered by a collective agreement will likely receive a similar compensation lift to what the teachers get this year. So last July 1st, they were permitted to have what teachers had in the year before, which is on a lag. That would be 1.9% if that is opened up and available for them. So we haven't costed that yet, but we're just making you aware that we are doing the costing on that, because that's something that you could consider in your budget. We also know that we had quite a number of new hires this year, and they're going to move up on the pay band as they move into their experience. So teachers have a 10 or 11 year, 10 step compensation structure. Once they get a years of experience, they move to the next step, and they don't necessarily move all at September 1st either. It's on the month following when you reach that step. So when we're budgeting on our employee group, we have to pay really close attention to when people are going to actually move, and we budget appropriately for that. BC Hydro rate. Oh, we gotta go back. Pension rates. When we hired a number of new education assistants 2 years ago to meet the blip that Karen showed you on the chart ahead, those individuals don't become eligible for pension benefits until they've been part of the school system for 2 years. It just has to do with their compensation rate. They'll be on the pension benefits in 2018, 2019, and that means the board has a contribution to make to those, towards those employees. So that's something we're calculating now as well. Small increase in hydro rates. Certainly are spending our hydro budget. I mentioned the savings were really around natural gas, so we will need to factor in some pressures there. Here's a big one. At the time we wrote this, we weren't really sure what it meant to have a 1.95% payroll tax to offset MSP premiums. We do now. For those that don't know, in 2020, the MSP premiums disappear for all members of every citizen in the province. So there will be no MSP premiums charged to anybody. They're being replaced with a 1.95% payroll tax for all employers who have a payroll greater than $1.5 million, effective January 1st, 2019. So next year, we pay half rates for MSP, because that's come in for this year. So we pay half rates for the whole year. And for 6 months of our school year, January to June, we pay the 1.95% tax. The 1.95% payroll tax is going to be about $630,000. So that's a significant number. For 6 months? Yeah. That's a significant number that we're going to need to factor into the budget, and it's really a double up, because we're repaying the premiums at the exact same time that we're paying the tax. So the province is front-end loading their collection of these monies to offset the MSP premiums to follow. So what's happening is MSP is being transferred to the employers from the citizens of the province, and we weren't sure if that was going to affect us, because it's really government taking from government to give back to government, but it is going to affect us. So you're now aware of that.
So in 2020, what will 1.95% of our, obviously going to be more than what we paid 2 years ago in a minute?
We need to work that out. I knew that was going to be a question. We will have an answer. We just haven't had the chance to prepare that. We have to go back and look at the old MSP bills. I think it'll be higher than the MSP premium was. Yeah. Another thing that's come in is after we wrote this report, and I could have updated this, just didn't get a chance to, we received our renewal rates for our employee benefit plans, And we are seeing approximately an 18% increase in the extended health program use of benefits for our teacher group. And that's about $260,000 on benefit premium increase. So that's a not funded. So that just means that our teachers have utilized their extended health and dental benefits at a rate higher than they have in the previous year, and that's being transferred into the benefit premium for the next year. That tends to follow with sick leave. They tend to, if one goes up, the other tends to go up. If people are very ill, often up goes the benefits along with that. They do tend to ride the same waves together. And I'm not sure we've really seen that ever really go down. CUPE are in the same place. They're seeing a smaller increase, but theirs is about 4% and almost double on the short-term benefit premium. Although that's only not only if that's only $17,000, that component, but overall they're up about 40. So we're seeing about $300,000 in benefit pressures coming into the budget next year. That we'll have to incorporate. Those aren't a choice or an option. We have to build those in. That's our bill. So, this is hard to follow that other group. That's super positive. Super positive. But it's real. I mean, that's the reality of what we'll have to face in the next budget. So some things we put in the consideration list, things we would like to look at costing. Of course, now we have those other pressures. Who knows what will be possible. We're seeing or hearing about pressures at our small secondary schools as their enrollments are starting to grow. And in past years, we've made some reductions to their clerical, and they're getting back to some of those original numbers. We're looking at whether or not to have a review of trustee compensation in the next budget. It's been about 20 years. I have already done that work, and we'll be ready when that comes up to the table. We have in the past moved trades positions over into capital. So say we have 22 carpenters, plumbers, etc. We have about 12 of them in the operating budget and a number of them who work specifically on capital. That means that we have less people in the operating budget able to do maintenance, and as long as we have capital work to keep those individuals busy, that works, but we've been working towards a place where we can start to bring some of them back into the operating budget for some of that deferred maintenance purposes. So that's something to consider. International program currently has 2 homestay managers, and a typical caseload is around 1 to 80 to 1 to 100. And that would suggest with 230 students that 0.5 FTE would potentially be appropriate there to offset the demands of those students. District vehicles are reaching the end. Some of the district vehicles, or you might call them the white fleet, they're the vans that are parked out back. Some of them are reaching the end of their useful service life, and we should be looking at a vehicle replacement program for those. Certainly, and education is undergoing some pretty significant transformation right now, and lots of requests when we were doing the classroom enhancement fund for some different kinds of furniture. So when we were staffing the new classrooms, people weren't asking for just the regular desks and tables. They were asking for different things. So we know there's a demand for new types of furniture to meet the new education delivery. Wellness program. So some good news there. We thought that the funding that we had received, new news, that the funding that we had received had to go back to the ministry at the end of this year. So on the wellness and absence initiative, the province gave the board $46,000 and told us we had to have it all spent by the end of this year, but also didn't allow anybody really to spend any until this year, and then with Bill 28, nobody could. Well, it's been extended for another year. So I don't think that there will actually be a pressure item that we'll bring forward to this next budget, because we should be able to operate within that fund. And that's new news since the time that this report was written. So I'll update the report before we close this summer. We have a communications specialist now, and supporting those communications goals could require a budget if you're looking at website overhaul, etc. Demands on classroom technology continue to increase. I have a report from our district principal of technology on what the requests would be for next year, and they are in addition to the $100,000 that was added to the base technology budget in the last year. So we'll be bringing the proposal to the board through that. Some interesting announcement on the early years. If you follow the provincial budget announcement, you may have noticed that there's $12.3 million provincially for early learning. And I don't know what that means yet, but if you think of us at 1.5% of the province, that it means potentially $180,000 could potentially be the district share on that. They haven't announced what it's for, they just announced that the money has been added to the education portfolio. So one to watch, and maybe that item, there's something there coming provincially to take care of that item that I've listed on the report. I'm still going. The district has hired a whole bunch of new teachers, and this year the board was putting aside some money to support those new teachers, and may wish to do that again next year, or maintain or expand on that. Libraries are transitioning to learning common spaces, and certainly as that happens, that requires some resources to make that happen. And the next couple of years, we see a number of our key managerial positions in the district planning to retire, or at least indicating they are, and how do we begin to prepare for some of the loss of that knowledge, which will be significant. So is there anything to be invested in succession planning in the next year or following? Some things we thought about. Also, reconciliation with the locals First Nations community, we know that remains a priority, and how does that become resourced? So a whole bunch of things to be thinking about after I deliver you some news around the 1.95% payroll tax and benefit rates, but didn't know those things at the time we put this together. Here's some good news. Savings for MSP premiums are reduced by 50% for 2018-2019.
Whole 6 months.
For the whole year, we'll get that half rate, but we'll also have the tax. And we also know that we can probably take out the demographics and policy consultant line items into the next year, and those will likely offset most of the election costs. Again, just have some other information. We're expecting the grant structure to be the same for next year. It would be the year after when potentially the review is complete, so it should be relatively predictable based on the enrollment that Karen has presented. We'll be able to do a grant estimate. The board currently is sitting with just under $1.3 million of unrestricted surplus. So I've showed you and potentially another $750,000 in surplus, but I've also showed you, I said I would come back to that, because that is almost the amount of the 1.95% tax. So the savings that you're receiving this year for MSP are really going to go into next year into offsetting the tax increase. So the next steps are that the board will approve and adopt an annual budget before June 30th of 2018. That's the technical date. We know that it will happen at the first meeting in May. And we begin the budget cycle based on the schedule that this committee has reviewed previously, with the hope of having first and second reading on April 25th, and that is the day before trustees attend the academy, and then come back on May 2nd to have final adoption. So again, enrollment's growing slightly. Still expecting to see some similar funding coming through the Classroom Enhancement Fund. Of course, the one-time startup funds won't be there next year, but we assume it'll be a similar process. An item that I'm still kind of confused about, I need to have some conversations with the ministry. What's funded in the Classroom Enhancement Fund is whatever is additional from what you would normally already have in the year. So for this year, we staffed as if we didn't have it, and we staffed with the new ratios and the Classroom Enhancement Fund, and you get the difference. So that kind of makes sense if you're going to have the same service, if you can afford the same service level in your operating budget from year to year. But what if you have so many pressures that you needed to drop your service level in your operating budget? Does that mean that the Classroom Enhancement Fund goes up? Do you understand my question? Rod does. It basically means, what if you had to make cuts? Let's say you had to change your LA ratio in your operating budget. If you didn't have the Classroom Enhancement Fund, and that was the only way you were able to actually balance your budget, and now you have the ratio saying you have to have it up here, do you get to transfer those savings that what you just had to make? How do you prove to the ministry that you needed to do that and translate that into the Classroom Enhancement Fund? I'm not sure if I'm explaining this very well.
We
but
need to write a really good letter.
Okay. How do we I don't know how we deal with that in budget yet, and I need to figure that out from the ministry and make a phone call. But that's the part that's really confusing me, because if we have these new pressures around benefit rates, and we would have normally made some alteration potentially to some of our staffing that are ratio-based or classroom-based, and now that's just transferring that cost to the ministry.
Yeah.
It's not really a reduction,
Have
because
we
you're
set,
gonna have the
have we,
same.
do we now have a preset base rate
I don't
from
think
this
so.
year, or do they
That's-
continue to fund
but
the
you-
gap?
You can't possibly have a preset base rate,
Correct.
because it always has to change based on your affordability. So, I don't know if anybody knows really what the answer is to this question yet. I mean, I was with my peers last week, and we're all sort of trying to figure this one out.
So, when do you hope to have an answer, Rob?
Well, I hope to call the ministry this week.
Wow. Trustee Smith?
So, I'm still looking forward to a fun budget season, but that's obviously not gonna happen. My question is, in all of this not funded, plus the 1.9%, 9.5%, that's gonna take up all our previous surplus.
We haven't costed everything yet. I don't know that that's true yet. And I think what I showed you with that $900,000,
Yeah.
that's probably allocated.
Cause you're saying $635,000 extra for the 6 months for the payroll tax.
Yeah, but we're also gonna have MSP premium savings that go the whole year on the 50% rate. Like, there's some things, we have a lot of work still to do. This is a preliminary look at the things we are considering, and we'll have estimates for you in March.
Okay.
We're still a bit early on a lot of those calculations, but we will have a reconciled position when we're back from spring break.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions of the Secretary
I
Treasurer?
think after spring break.
Anything else, sir?
No, thank you.
There's a meeting coming up. Be some interesting questions.
Yeah,
Then it was-
that's this Friday. Okay. Anything on policy? Motion to adjourn. Thank you. Trustee DeGroot, second by Trustee Smith. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion
Girls,
carries.
fast.